Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
All right, here we are again.
Here we are again after a win, Dad. Back to back. Don't call it a win streak. 2 in a row. Dad, the Packers won on Thanksgiving.
I know. So what is it? The gibbous moon is undefeated against the Lions on Thanksgiving.
The best joke I saw was Aaron Rodgers has to be so pissed that Packers fans started worshiping the moon after he left. That was the best tweet I saw of the day. It was so funny. But anyway, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, Packers win on Thanksgiving 29 to 22 against the Detroit Lions in Detroit on a short week with a boatload of injuries. Arguably, maybe the most impressive win of the Matt LaFleur era. They were almost 9-point underdogs. I mean, to win by over a touchdown, and to be honest, it was not as close as that. They were up by multiple scores almost the entire game. Super impressive. We're going to break it all down here for you today. And if you didn't know, the Lions, the moon thing is because the Lions have never won on Thanksgiving with a waxing gibbous moon.
Waxing gibbous moon.
So, fun little Freakonomics-esque stat there for you. But before we get into everything about this game, about how exciting it is, Packers 5-6, they're kind of still alive in the playoff picture, sort of. Before we do that, though, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have new episodes, articles we find interesting, pieces of stats that we find interesting when we do our research for these shows, videos we find interesting, Packers news, etc. Everything you need, one-stop shopping for Titletown. And then come subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube, so you can subscribe to us there. It would really help our numbers. But Dad, how are you feeling after this win? I know it's been a couple days now. We had some plans over, the Thanksgiving, and so we weren't able to get an episode out right after like we would have hoped, but better late than never, and we hope you can still listen to this as you're watching maybe some less exciting games tomorrow as we record Saturday night. But Dad, how did you feel after this win?
Unimportant games because the Packers aren't playing.
Exactly. But Dad, how did you feel?
Relax. It was like, and our playoff, it's like, we could talk playoffs again because our playoff probability did almost double. I think.
Yeah, I think,
crazy
5-6
just by winning that one game.
Well, 5-6, not only did they win that game, the Seahawks lost theirs. So both the Seahawks and Vikings are 6-5 with the Packers hot on their tails at 5-6. I'm just saying, anything could happen. Anything could happen. A lot of season left. I know the Packers have some difficult games coming up, but to take back-to-back games against the Chargers and Lions where you were underdogs in both games, very impressive.
We've already won 2 games in a set of 4 where a lot of people were saying we probably weren't going to win any. That this is the hardest stretch of the year. And so we basically, it's like house money winning 2 of those games.
That's very true. It's very true. It's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bemoan losses that they shouldn't have had earlier in the year now that we're in the hunt. I'm just not going to do it. It is what it is. We're just going to celebrate the wins now. And Dad, let's start talking about this game. Like we said, Packers win 29-22. Injury update, just a quick, aside. In game, pretty clean. I think Wyatt was at one point evaluated for a concussion, went back to the locker room and came back. So that is at least good. Besides that, in game, I think pretty clean for the Packers. I didn't see anything else. However, Jair Alexander, Devondre Campbell, Rudy Ford, and Dontavian Wicks all did not end up playing in this game. Add on to the fact that, no Luke Musgrave, no Aaron Jones, no Emmanuel Wilson, no Darnell Savage, although he's been designated to return, probably not back till the next game. When you think about it, I mean...
No Eric Stokes.
No Eric Stokes. Didn't have essentially 4 of the 5 starters you planned to have coming into the year in the secondary. Didn't have one of your starting linebackers. Didn't have... obviously...
Your number 1 tight end.
Didn't have your number 1 tight end.
Running back or your best offensive lineman. That's all. I saw, somebody, I think a Lions fan was saying, enjoy the win when we were missing, whatever, our safety and lineman. It's like, really? You're going to complain about guys you're missing?
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at the cap hits of the guys the Packers are missing, I mean, my goodness, it's like half the salary cap is not playing, or more, honestly. But yeah.
I think if you conclude the dead cap from players who aren't going to the team anymore,
if you include the dead cap,
it's definitely it's got to be more than half.
Yes, but there's just no way it isn't. That number's too big to calculate at this point. But anyway, that is just part of the reason.
It is a number too big for modern computers.
But yeah, so the Packers, super banged up, going into Ford Field on a short week against a team that kicked their ass last time. You and I, who are optimistic Packers fans, both, I think, picked multiple score losses for the Packers in this game. And to come out, and let's just start getting into it, Dad. Packers win 29-22. Biggest moment of the game was the sack forced fumble by Gary that was scoop and scored by Jonathan Owens. This took the win probability. So how we do this is the biggest moment of the game for us is the one that swings win probability the most. We wanted to do it as something a little more empirical than just how we felt about it. But that swung the win probability of Green Bay from 59.2% chance of winning all the way to 74% chance of winning, a 14.8% swing. And Dad, yeah, hard to argue that that's not the play of the game. It scored the 20th point of the first quarter for the Packers. Imagine if I had told you 4 weeks ago the Packers would score 20 points in the first quarter. That might be close to as many points as they've scored in the first quarter all year combined. I don't think I'm exaggerating.
That is definitely possible. I did go through, but when we went through the stretch, we were averaging like 3 points a half.
Yeah. 3 points a half at one point, and we'd be like, I remember celebrating when they finally scored a first half touchdown against the Rams. I remember like, yes, finally, we scored. And I think that's been one of the biggest differences is not being completely inept in the first half of the last 4 games. But Dad, let's start talking about this game in earnest. Very exciting win. Like I said, I think maybe the most exciting or maybe the most impressive win of the Matt LaFleur era. And I want to give like the coaching staff like their flowers really quick before we start diving into anything else. Just because, this team was 2-5, coming off some really ugly losses. Yeah. And coming off
2-5 and on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah. And really ugly losses to some bad teams with the bye in there, still coming out and losing games. And I think it would have been really easy just to, just kind of be like, okay, like let's start packing it up, getting ready for next. This team has responded and won 3 of 4 and like culminating in this one, which I'll talk about in a second as to why I think that's like it's so impressive. But this team's 3 and 4 in their last 4. Up to 5 and 6, this team was written off like dead to rights. We, both of us, were at large points in that middle of the season, that's that 3 or 4 game stretch, just questioning like, what is the coaching doing? What is the coaching actually bringing to the table? Is this coaching staff the right staff to move forward with the team? We had lots of these questions. A lot of people had these questions, and I think they were fair to have because this team looked rudderless. It looked directionless for times for like a 3 or 4 week span, but they've gotten this thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Cause there was like bad play calling, bad discipline, bad
penalties,
attention to detail, penalties,
not knowing the plays. And there is still some of that, but this team is back on the rails in large part to Matt LaFleur. He called a gem of a game in this Lions game. And just considering, how beaten up this team was, not practicing all week essentially, like because they were so beat up and on a short week.
It was all walkthroughs, or not even walkthroughs. Was it?
No,
was it even
just
a walkthrough?
Estimated participation. I think it was all just like film room. To go in there to have a game plan. Shout out Joe Barry as well. I think when we criticize Joe Barry a lot when he does things that we don't like, we should be just as loud praising him when he does things that we do like. There wasn't a perfect game, but considering the players that were out in this game, which we'll talk about, I think an excellent game from Joe Barry, an excellent game from Matt LaFleur, an excellent game from Matt LaFleur, not just as a play caller, though, as a coach in terms of getting the guys fired up, like circling this game on the calendar, like, hey, they came into our place on Thursday Night Football in Week 4 and kicked our ass up and down Lambeau Field. Their fans had taken over Lambeau Field and were drowning out the sound of Packers fans because we were getting our ass kicked so bad. We need to go in there and show them like we're not a team that just rolls over in the NFC North. Like we're going to put our stamp on this game, and they did. And so I think I want to just, before I do anything, big flowers to Matt LaFleur. Dad, what did you think about the coaching in this game? What did you think?
I thought there was a much better overall feel for the game, getting out to a fast start, being aggressive in some of it. There's still a few things that maybe I would have preferred a little bit more aggressive, but like I love that. I guess Love had to talk LaFleur into keeping that big, going for the bomb early, but they went for big shots.
Before that,
they got some big plays.
Even before that, taking the ball at the start of the game.
I was so happy they started on offense. Like, let's set the tone right now. Let's put the points on the score first and have them chasing us all game.
Yeah. Excellent decision making all the way through, I think, from Matt LaFleur. I mean, obviously, no one's going to call a perfect game, but I think for the most part, a very impressive display from the Packers coaching staff. Dad, let's start digging in more into the rest of this game, though. Do you want to talk about the offense or the defense first? Because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. You know what? Actually, I'm taking it out of your hands. I think you got to start with Jordan Love, because I know we started with the coaching staff because I wanted to get that in there before we forgot about them, because I think it's so easy to focus on the players. But Dad, the story of this game, it's got to be Jordan Love's performance. I mean, this is the best. This is, I think, maybe 4 straight weeks he has had the best game of his career. I don't think it's a he was incredible in this game. He was so good. What do you have on Love?
There was like barely anything negative in the game for him. I mean, did you want to do what they're saying about it? Because it's not the
sure.
The quote from Christian Watson is about Love.
Yeah, we can start with that. Christian Watson about Jordan Love. This was tweeted out by his dad on Twitter, I believe. Christian Watson's dad, that is. Quote: "In my eyes, I think we've seen enough. We know what he's, Love that is, capable of. And for him, he's going to keep on getting better, keep on climbing, keep on getting even more comfortable out there. And we're going to keep on getting better around him too. We're going to keep on coming up as a team, and that's only going to make all of us better." End quote. And so that was Christian Watson about Jordan Love. The team is super fired up behind him. He is stacking successes, and he put together his best performance of the year so far in front of a national audience on Thanksgiving with all the pressure on him against a better team. And I know Detroit's pass defense has not been great recently, but I mean, he was dominant in this game. He was pretty much the whole offense for large swaths of the game, not having, number 1 tight end out there, not having Wicks, who he'd had developed a very good connection with the past few weeks. I mean, so impressive from Love in this game, Dad. What did you have on him?
Yeah, so I felt like he was making a lot of big time plays, big time throws, both downfield and under pressure with some incredible arm angles and moving in the pocket. He had his season high in passer rating, his season high in QBR per ESPN. I think he has also had his season high in PFF rating overall and in passing. He completed 8 passes over 10 yards, his third most this season, behind only the Steelers and Saints games, though his second highest PFF grade on throws over 20 yards. For the second time in 4 weeks, he set a season high in EPA plus CPOA composite rating per RBSDM. And his EPA plus CPOE has been steadily rising after hitting like a season low in week 5 after the game against Las Vegas, which you remember was not a high point for the season. That was when we were feeling really bad about it.
That was probably the worst game of the year so far. I would say was that Raiders game. And
it also was reflected in Love's rating by CPOE and EPA plus CPOE. And so I kind of wanted to look at how he'd been performing over the year. And so I did a graph of his performance every week. And one thing I did, because it's kind of noisy when you just do 1 week at a time, I did a kind of a rolling 3-week average to smooth that out, the trends. And you can definitely see that since hitting that kind of rock bottom in week 5, he's been gradually rising in EPA per play, in CPOE, and in, EPA per play plus CPOE. And he's been rising up in the kind of the rankings in the league, as well as his own performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's been so good over the last 4 weeks. In this game, like I said, arguably his best game of the year. It's his highest PFF passing grade, whatever you want to put weight-wise into that, of the year for his season. Second highest completion percentage of the year for him, while having the third highest average depth of target for him on the year. These numbers are per PFF. Third highest big-time throw rate of the year for him. Third highest yards per attempt. Lowest turnover-worthy play rate. He didn't have a single turnover-worthy play in this game. And lowest pressure-to-sack rate in this game. And to me, that was actually the most impressive thing, was how he handled pressure in this game. Last game, he took 3 sacks, and I think some of them might have been more avoidable. This one, 15 pressures, and took no sacks the entire game. I thought he did an exceptional job of, the really good quarterbacks know when to not take a big negative play and just live to see the next down. He had 2 throwaways and then 1 very nice, ducking Aiden Hutchinson and then just shovel passing it off to AJ Dillon for 3 yards or 4 yards to just keep the drive moving. He didn't end up getting hit very hard on that one because he was able to get out of there, but his pocket was collapsing on him. But anyway, those plays, I think, like, they don't show up on the stat sheet. They're not in any highlights. But I thought like those being able to do the little stuff like that was really exciting for me, just because like you're not taking a sack there. You're not like throwing the ball into harm's way. You are just getting from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 7, or 1st and 10 to 2nd and 10, and not 2nd and 15, 2nd and 17, which was a lot of times, I think, the problem early in the year with so many negative plays.
Right,
not
either
just
penalties or sacks.
Yeah, and just couldn't do
that would happen. But he's also, I think he was kind of getting really into a groove, kind of feeling himself because things were going well, and he was kind of dealing all over the field. And when he decided to make that scramble around and then make that cross field throw to Malik Heath,
what do you think about that throw?
Play?
What do you think about that? What do you think about that decision to throw that ball?
This is a different question when I think about that decision. But he did when he made the throw. It was never in harm's way.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I definitely held my breath a little bit. I was like, I don't know about that, but hey,
don't throw a pick six. Don't throw a pick six. Don't throw a pick six.
Because that is prime. Like, there's no one even on that side of the field. Like, besides,
if he underthrows that and it gets picked off at a dead run.
100%.
There's nobody going to catch up.
Even without a dead run, there's no one else over there. The whole line is on the right side of the field. They're on the right hash. He's throwing it to the left. He's throwing to the left boundary. He, I think, had more like crazy like arm talent things in this game. I know in the Steelers game, PFF technically had him with more big time throws. In terms, they had him with 5. In this one, I think they only had him with 2. I think the arm talent stuff he showed in this game was insane. Just like sidearm, cross the field for almost no reason from like right hash to left sideline. Down, just bullets down the middle of the field on like weird arm angles, weird platforms. It was a really fun quarterbacking game to watch. Like, regardless of like the numbers, anything, just like put on that game and just watch it and don't even look at the score. It's just like, wow, that was cool. Yeah, that was a sick
game.
Play.
Would be just a fun rewatch game. One of those games like, I enjoy this game no matter what else happened this year. I'll watch this game over and over again in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the highlights from this game are just crazy. And I know it's kind of funny. Everyone is pointing out how Love and Rodgers, first years, through 11 games, have exactly the same number of passing yards, and they're like 1 off on touchdown and a couple off on interceptions, which is crazy to think about. But the number that I actually wanted to look at comparing Rodgers and Love is per Jacob Morley on Twitter. And this was comparing actually Rodgers' 2021 MVP year with Love's current year, and actually looking at their deep passing. So this is something that I found very interesting, because I think a lot of people's concern with Love is like, oh, kind of inaccurate on the deep ball. But if you compare, Rodgers 2021 and Love this year, like I said, on 20-plus yard, throws that travel 20-plus yards in the air, Love has 54 attempts. Rodgers had 47. So Love has the most attempted throws of 20-plus air yards in the league this year. Rodgers was 6th that year. Love has more completions, 20 versus 17, and Love ranks higher amongst his peers as well in that one as well. Love has more passes of 20-plus air yards that were deemed as a higher percentage of passes of 20-plus air yards that are deemed catchable at 38.9%, whereas Rodgers was at 36.2%. They had the same number of touchdowns on 20-plus yard air throws at 4. Rodgers had 1 fewer pick, 3 versus 4. And then Rodgers had a slightly better QBR at 86.1 compared to Love's 78.9. However, Love's QBR is better compared to his peers at 20-plus yard air throws. Love ranks 18th of 28 qualifying quarterbacks this year, and Rodgers ranked 20 of 25 quarterbacks in 2021. Just important to include that, because I think in some ways the emergence of cover like the high cover 2 shells in the past few years and the like almost ubiquitousness of it at this point does make, I think, throwing down the field harder. And so while Love's quarterback rating is worse, I think, it's just showing that every quarterback rating of 20-plus air yard throws is worse now than it was 2 years ago even. And so despite Love's QBR being worse, it is better amongst his peers. It's just all I wanted to add as a little caveat there. But the main thing is just like, the thing that people have the most concern on with Love is deep ball accuracy. And I know I've been rambling for a little bit, but his deep ball accuracy in terms of throwing catchable balls deep is better than Rodgers' 2020 MVP year. So I just thought that was very interesting to me. Jacob Morley on Twitter, once again, does a lot of awesome stuff in terms of stats, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so Dad, that was just a little rambling from me. I just wanted to talk about Love a little bit. I thought we needed to talk about Love in this game because he was so good. I mean, he was probably the highlight of the game by far, I think. Didn't get his turkey leg. Some shenanigans there.
Did you hear the latest story I heard was that, they didn't want to bring it out because they had 2 turkeys and Greg Olson ate one of them. There's always one for the booth that goes, and then they had pre-stamped the turkey with like a lion's
they wouldn't do.
Do you believe that story?
Thing. No, I don't know what happened. I'm sure someone like dropped it. I bet it. I literally bet is as simple as someone dropped it. And it's
if somebody dropped it, would you
I
just
would
brush it off and bring it out there anyway?
I don't think they would. I might. I thought you were going to ask, would you still eat it? I would. I don't think I would brush it off and serve it to anyone else, but I think it's probably as simple as someone like accidentally dropped it or something, or they overcooked it or something, or they started cutting into it and realized it was raw. That could certainly happen to anyone. But no, I just want justice for Jordan Love is all I'm going to say. He deserves his turkey.
Somebody needs to give him a turkey leg on TV.
I know, right? Anything else on Jordan Love, though, Dad? We needed to start with him because he was the story of this game. He's the story of the Packers season. We said so many times, all that matters is Jordan Love's development this year, and it's 4 straight games of some really promising stuff for him. Anything else you wanted to add?
One thing that's interesting is like, I'm just kind of quick looking over things like his average depth of target. This is by far his best rated passing game by PFF when his average depth of target is over 10, and the others they're not even close. This is his first high. This is by far his best passing grade of the year, and the other ones that were above average did not have nearly as high a depth of target.
Yeah, but let's move on to some. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Oh, just making high level throws, and and players were also making plays, but it was well schemed, and he was making throws on the move. Long run was that that the longest of his career or not quite? It was a 37-yarder.
Good question. I did not check. I think it's certainly up there, if nothing else.
Maybe he has like a 39-yarder or something.
The one against the Falcons is probably close. And then the one against the Saints, I think, was like mid to high 20s. And then thinking beyond that, I think that's probably it. But I'd have to go look, actually. But it's certainly
that's
in the conversation
his long
this
year at 37 yards.
Okay, that's exciting.
His next longest this year is 26.
He could have maybe taken that thing another 20, 25 yards.
If he didn't mind getting lit up, he could have gone a little farther. But I love the play that that he ran the option and converted the first down, and plus all the extra yardage. It was a great play.
Yep. Just read the edge. Ed crashed in. Free money. Just take the free yards. But let's move on to other parts of the offense now. We've already talked a lot about Love. Rightly so, but I think there are some other parts of the offense to talk about. Staying in the positive lane, for me, the next positive that I had was Malik Heath. Crazy, like efficiency per snap numbers. He seemed to take Wicks's role in this game in terms of like supplementary receiver, getting a certain number of snaps.
He's just making plays every time the ball's thrown to him.
Well, it's great. It's even crazier like when I actually look at the numbers. So he had the second most receiving yards on the team with 46. Only Watson had more. He played just 11 total snaps and just 5 total passing snaps. And in those 5 passing snaps, he had 4 catches on 4 targets for 46 yards. So every time he was on the field and they were throwing the ball nearly, he was getting open and they were throwing him the rock, which is the per snap efficiency is off the charts and not scalable at all. It's not what I'm saying. If you put him out there another,
are you sure? 10, I think we need to put him out there for like 30 snaps now.
Yeah, and then just
needs to run 30 routes next time.
And he'd clearly have 250 yards then. Just that's what the math is telling me. But no, I just wanted to shout out Malik Heath stepping up in the place of an injured Wicks who was out in the concussion protocol. I mean, he was really good. He was blocking his you-know-what off. And I think he was the highest graded Packer on the day if you don't like look at limit on snap counts. I think he was by far the highest graded Packer on either side of the football. And rightly so. I mean, he was blocking like crazy. He was always open. He caught multiple passes downfield for greater than 10-yard gains. I mean, he's super effective in his role. And just what seems like another very solid undrafted free agent signing for Green Bay. And I don't know what they're going to do with this receiver room when everyone is healthy. There are too many mouths to feed, but that's a good problem to have, Dad. What did you have as another positive for the offense?
I want another Sports Illustrated cover.
I know, right?
In another year or two.
Yeah, I mean, it was an iconic photo. Maybe they can just recreate it. But, Dad, any other positives on offense? Anything else you want to say about Malik Heath? Or should we maybe talk about some
I also went to the receiver room. I also wanted to go to the receiver room and give some shout-out to Christian Watson. Kind of got involved in multiple levels. Got the day started off the right foot with a 54-yarder. He caught 5 of his...
And helping his quarterback out on that 54-yarder because it was not a perfect throw, and he made it happen.
He caught 5 of 7 targets for 94 yards and a TD. That opening bomb, and one thing that he did, was a little underthrown, but he did a better job than he has in a lot of opportunities to come back to the ball. So he's in a position to fight for it and make the contested catch over the defender. He had, in next gen stats, looking at the chart, he had 2 catches to the right, less than 10 yards downfield. The touchdown to the left that was 20 yards downfield, and another completion to the left at 10 yards downfield. So using both sides of the field, all levels of the field. He caught 3 of 3 contested catches by PFF. So it's the first time all year he's been at 100% in contested catches.
Mm-hmm. And he probably, I think, I know I'm a homer, but I really did think that was pass interference at the goal line that he had forced.
He got tripped. How could they not call that? And then they called a play later in the game that was very similar.
I know.
Where they got tangled up and fell down. I was like, wait a minute. What did you change your mind? You decided, we really should have called one back then, so we're going to call it now? I was like,
the argument on
they got tangled.
broadcast.
Yeah, but if you get tangled and knock somebody down when he's open, that's still got to be interference.
Yeah. And the argument they were making in the broadcast is like, he was turning for the ball, and then he took out Watson's legs while he was turning for the ball.
It's irrelevant what his intention was.
Yeah, it's like he took out. So he agreed. He took out his legs. Like, what are we doing here? But anyway,
I was shocked they didn't call that when they just tripped him and took him down.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in because he could have had an even better.
It could have been another touchdown and another chunk yards. He had his highest passer rating when targeted of the year at 153.3. This is the second week in a row now of being over 100 when targeted. And those are the only 2 times this year, but he's trending up. He was 2 of 4 on catching passes that were more than 20 yards downfield after being only 2 of 11 earlier in the year. So we're looking for
trending up.
Trending up.
And I think
he had a good game, and hopefully it's a sign of more to come.
Yeah, and I think probably his best game of the year, right? Like, has to be.
There's
easy. No way it's not, right? It's like easily his best game of the year. Multiple players having their best game of the year against an 8-2 Lions team that, is really playing for something. Like, it's just impressive. It's just it warms my soul.
Lions were on the doorstep of fighting for the number 1 seed in the conference.
Yeah.
So they had a lot to play for.
Lots to play for. And I get it's a short week for them, and I know that their defense has kind of been a little shaky recently, but I can't help but be really excited about this win. However, Dad, there are some negatives on the offensive side of the football that I did want to just touch on, not to rain on anyone's parade. But for me, the 2 were mostly offensive line related. Specifically, number 1, my Yosh Nijman narrative, my Yosh Nijman agenda.
Did that trade just derail on you?
That agenda took a hit this week. The issue, he ran block very well. He was their highest graded run blocker per PFF, which, however much stock you want to put into that, he was their highest graded run blocker. But on just 6 pass blocking snaps, he allowed 2 pressures, which is really not good. You can't be allowing a pressure 1 out of 3 snaps that you're out there pass blocking. It's just not going to work. So my Yosh Nijman narrative took a bit of a hit. And then besides him, the run blocking was not good in this game, and the run game is still lacking. Running backs had just 17 attempts for 54 yards, 3.17 yards per carry. It's not great. Negative 0.17 EPA per rush would be 26th worst in the league if it was over the course of a whole season. It's per RBSDM. Green Bay is currently 20th, so worse than their usual. And a 35% rush success rate would be 26th worst in the league as well if it was the whole season. Green Bay is currently 18th, so they've kind of performed worse than their usual standard for a run game that already had been struggling this year, so that's not ideal. Yes, the Lions' run defense is good. Negative 0.122 EPA per rush allowed and a 38% rush success rate allowed. But those numbers are still below what the Lions, below those numbers. The numbers the Packers had in this game are still below what the Lions are allowing for the season. So that's still not good. I still think Dillon has been playing really well. I just put it mostly on the offensive line. 39 yards after contact of those 54 yards. So they're averaging just 0.88 yards before contact per rush in this game and 2.29 after, 0.88 yards before contact per rush and 2.29 yards after contact before rush, which, leads me to believe that's the offensive line, and PFF seems to agree. Only Nyman graded out above average, and Runyon, Jenkins, and Ryan all had run blocking grades below 60. So not great.
Yeah. But on the plus side, I think Dillon's been looking faster with more acceleration burst.
More explosive. He had a
both in the run game and in the pass game.
I was just about to say the same thing. Two explosive
plays.
He had multiple nice moments in the run game. The one where he kind of does the Super Mario jump, little hurdle, and gets hit in the air and then runs for another 15 yards. And then just taking a nice short dump off to the right for a first down for 11 yards. Just doing his job. And so that's why I would say it's more about the offensive line failing to block up front. And the Lions' run defense is very good. This is totally fair. I think they were 8th by DVOA, if I remember correctly. But at the same time, it'd be nice to get that run game going, which is part of the reason why Love's performance was even more impressive. He was pretty much the offense. They said, just go out there and throw the ball around. Just keep throwing it. Just keep going. Be our second leading rusher as well. Just keep taking the rock. So those are the two things, is just offensive line related. I think there's still a little bit of flux there. Dad, what did you have?
There's definitely flux there because they're still doing a platoon situation.
I've never
at two positions.
I've never seen a team platoon 2 offensive linemen. I've never seen it before in my entire life. It's crazy to me that they're why not just commit to one guy? I just don't really get it. And I get it more for the Nyman Walker, but and I guess I get it for Runyon and Ryan. Runyon's more established. He's had more good seasons, but I know a lot of people are pushing for Ryan, including Brian Bulaga. Did you see this tweet? Brian Bulaga said it's time for...
I only saw Bulaga said something about Crosby. I didn't see about Ryan.
He said it's time for Sean Ryan to start, is what Brian Bulaga said, which is... that's the only stamp I need. If Brian Bulaga saying it's time, it's time.
I mean, I had it in it. I might as well mention this now because I had it in as one of the things that makes Sigler to talk about the platoon is just another Sean Ryan, John Runyon mix. And this week, Ryan was better than Runyon on pass blocking as well as run. I think it's the first time that's happened where he had a better pass blocking grade by PFF than Runyon did. And he's been better, I think, on run blocking every single game they both played.
And he's under contract next year. And he's cheap. There's
as I was watching.
Go ahead.
So I was watching the possession where one of the possessions he was in. It's he's doing a good job on almost every rep. And so I like to see the team commit to giving him, maybe starting with him and seeing how he does.
We can talk about this another time, but why was he behind Royce Newman? Why has he never touched the field?
Oh,
what does he just look terrible in practice? I don't get it. I don't really get it at all.
Maybe he's honestly improved from the beginning.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But it would just be kind of surprising to me that he would make such leaps and bounds in season when you're not really drilling things as hard, I guess. I don't know, but good for Sean Ryan, looking better. And, last year I think he was in many ways my the symbol of the Packers third round curse that I would reference was we picked a guard that can't even get on the field for special teams plays, is taking performance enhancing drugs and still can't get on the field. So he was at many times just kind of a symbol of my ire at the Packers third round drafting. But if he can become a starting capable right guard, which it seems like he has been in limited snaps, that'd be very exciting because then that's one less position you got to worry about this offseason as Runyon is not in contract.
One less position you need to draft for.
But yeah, Dad.
And then I had some other. I had some other bad things in there. what happened on that fourth down run attempt between Dillon and Love. Even that was even coming out of the quarter break, and they still didn't get the play right.
Well, that's the thing is they left points on the board multiple times in this game. The third down drop by Dobbs when they're driving down the field into Lions territory. The fourth down where, like you were talking about, Dillon, I can't tell. Either Dillon runs the wrong way or Love is leading him the wrong way.
One of them does because Dillon just runs smack into Love.
It's a little weird to me. The reason I hesitate to blame it all on Dillon is Love turns left shoulder and then goes to hand off right, which I don't think I've seen like a player turn the opposite way of the way that they're handing it off before. I don't know. But yeah, they run right into each other and don't do anything. So not great. Not great. More examples of the run game just being a mystery to this team. And I just, I don't understand it. It's partially personnel, but it's also like, hey, can we run the right direction? Like, it's not that hard. Like, that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, this team is still shooting itself in the foot. It's just not committing as many penalties. And even like, just to expound a little bit on the shooting themselves in the foot, I was watching the QB School's breakdown of Love's game earlier, and he was talking about the touchdown to Reed. He's like, I'm pretty sure Christian Watson's not running the right route on this play. He's like, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be double slant, and Watson accidentally runs it out, and that's why the window is as tight as it is. And so it's like stuff like that.
Like practically hits him in the back of the jersey as it's zipping in there to Reed.
What a throw, though. Honestly, what a throw, but also like, when the window's that tight, it's at least 20% luck, in my opinion. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but anyway. Anything else negative on defense or on offense, Deb?
I didn't like that they ended up punting on 3 of their last 4 possessions when they're trying to seal out the game.
They slowed down a little bit.
All 3 of those that they punted were in Detroit territory. I mean, they did do a better job of pinning deep, but I didn't really like that the way they kind of.
The punting wasn't terrible, though. I guess.
No, the punting was good punting. And I have comments on that overall, but I did not like the way they kind of left point chances on the board, gave Detroit a little bit of life by not sustaining some of those drives. And one of them, it was like 4th and 4 at the 45 or something.
Yeah,
Detroit they might the analytics probably suggest you should go for that.
Yeah, and they punt, like you said, 3 of their last 4 drives, 3 of their last 4 real drives, that is. Besides
not counting the kneel down.
And the only one that they scored a touchdown on was that shortened field after the fake punt. So pretty much, they had, and they're still moving the ball, 6 plays, 28 yards punt. And that was the drop by Dobbs. And then 5 plays, 13 yards punt. That's the one where, they might have had Reed deep and it hit his hands and he didn't quite have it. It was a little off target. And then,
off the fingertips. Yeah. No, when you watch that, it's like, did he alligator arm that one? Or
yeah. And then 6 plays, 46 yards punt. And that was the one where, Love's thrown off his back foot to Watson.
With pressure in that's the one with pressure in his face. He's throwing way downfield. Watson's open on that one too, but because the pressure in his face so early,
Myers got beat really bad.
Yeah, in like half a second.
I do want to talk a little bit about Myers, and I know we're getting a little long on the offensive side, and it's not going to save as much room for the defense, but they were doing some interesting things in pass protection today. I don't know if you noticed this. A couple different times, with Aiden Hutchinson specifically, they would run play action, chip Hutchinson with Kraft, and pull Myers to the right to block Hutchinson in pass protection. I have not seen like that kind of funkiness much. Like, is that common? I'm not really sure. It doesn't seem like it would be, but they were doing weird. Like, and I feel like Myers has been playing okay. It's just he whiffs sometimes. There's room for improvement there, but he hasn't been the worst player on the offensive line. So I guess that's improvement enough, I suppose. But yeah, that offensively, very exciting game. Just some spots to clean up and still making some mistakes here and there. And I do think, when you go over those plays where they did punt, like it was there for them. It wasn't that the offense just like died. Like in some other, in another scenario where like, I'd be like, damn, the offense just died in the second half. To me, it's like the offense just didn't make plays that were there for them. Dobbs should have had that catch. Reed arguably could have had that catch. If Myers doesn't lose like instantaneously, they might have a chance of that Watson's shot. And at the same time, they're also like, they've already killed like 3 minutes in a two score game at that point. Like it's 2:20 left. So they're also punting because at that point you should punt. Like you should not give a short field up 2 scores with 2.5 minutes left. But anyway, especially on like 4th and 10. But anyway, Dad, moving on to the defense. Anything else you wanted to say there?
Let's move on to the defense.
Okay, defensively, let's start with the negatives so we can end with some positives. Because this, just like an entire positive of a game, to be honest. And this is going to end up being a long episode, it seems like. Sorry, listeners. Actually, you know what? I'm not sorry. We're talking about a fun game. This was an enjoyable one. I'm going to talk about it as much as we can.
This should be less painful than listening to a long episode and a bad game.
Yeah, you know what Rashawn Gary's saying about this game, what they're saying. Quote, I'm tired of crying around y'all MFers. Quote, end quote, Rashawn Gary after getting the game ball. I mean, we're going to talk about the negatives first, but the D-line in this one by the Packers, I think, is arguably the 1B story to Jordan Love. And we'll get to that in a second. But, Dad, let's talk about some negatives on defense so we can end on the positive. For me, it's that the run defense is still questionable. There were bright spots, though. And so I'm just going to run through a couple stats here. Detroit running backs had 26 carries for 125 yards and a touchdown, so that's 4.8 yards per carry, which is not great. The Packers allowed a 43% rush success rate and an EPA per rush of negative 0.04. In terms of like opponent, this isn't horrible, as the Lions through week 11 were at 0.008 EPA per rush and a 42% success rate, so they kind of actually allowed pretty much about what Detroit is doing standardly. But it is still a worse success rate than the Packers have allowed on the year generally, and that success rate would rank 26th in the league in rush success rate and 29th in EPA per rush allowed over the course of a season if it was just what the Packers allowed in this game. Lions like to run the ball. Like we said, they run the ball well, but the Packers didn't do too much to limit them. Specifically on 3rd down is where the Packers struggled to stop the run. And I'll get to the bright side in a second, but just to get the negative out of the way, Lions had 5 carries on 3rd down. 3 of them went for first downs, straight up. 1 went for a touchdown that was called back by a penalty to 3rd and 1. So it was 3rd and 6. It was the David Montgomery to the end zone, holding at the 1-yard line, brought it back, but then it made it 3rd and 1, and they subsequently just rushed for a first down anyways, one of the first 3 I was talking about. And then the last was the Jared Goff scramble where Carl Brooks stripped him. So 4 of the 5 of those plays, gained enough yards to be successful on the next play. So just 3rd down, they were kind of letting the Lions do what they wanted in short yardage in the run game. But like I said, there is a little prize at the end of this story. The Packers' run defense on 1st and 2nd down was really good in this game. And a big part of the reason that they were able to have some success on 3rd down in terms of stopping the pass and 3rd down in terms of, and 4th down in terms of stopping the pass as well. On 1st and 2nd downs, the Packers allowed a success rate of just 33.3%, which would have been the 7th best early down rushing success rate allowed in the league for the year. For reference, as a team, they're currently 23rd. So way above their heads in that mark. And it's especially impressive considering the Lions have the 9th best early down rush success rate in the league. So hats off to them for being able to keep the Lions in uncomfortable downs and distances. I think a big in terms of slowing down the run game early. I think it's a big reason they had success in this game. But there just is a lot. There's still 4.8 yards per carry is not good. Is just like a kind of overarching, but there were at least moments where the run defense was good and key moments that I think had big effects on the game. Sorry for rambling there, Dad. Thoughts on the Packers run defense, or did you want to move to your own negative for the defense?
Well, I just say, even though they're giving up 4.8, you still felt like they were forcing Detroit to pass on enough plays that they could then be in more advantageous situations than Detroit's playbook being open to run or pass throughout the game, which is something that's happened to the Packers before. What I had for my bad thing was actually something in Detroit's passing game. They had a ton of success in the middle of the field, completing 16 of 21 of their passes in any level but in the middle for 220 yards with an elite PFF grade for Goff in the intermediate center of the defense in particular. Maybe not a big surprise considering they're missing Campbell and their 2 starting safeties.
Yeah. And I think McDuffie struggled in coverage in this game.
Struggled
I
in
think
coverage
is what a lot
in this
of
game
people
in particular.
have agreed on.
Yeah. So in particular, Cleef Raymond seemed to be unguardable. He beat everyone. Like, I think 4 different people were marked with covering him, and every one of them he caught all 5 of his targets for 90 yards.
Well, I think what both him and Jamison Williams kind of had, the reason I would say that they had a large amount of success against this defense just slow. Like, they just did not have the speed on the back end to hang with these guys running across the field. I think was the big thing. It's like, I saw Jamison Williams just pull away from Carrington Valentine. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, thank goodness the D-line was getting to Goff, because there were some guys streaking open in the middle of the field and down the field. But go ahead, sorry.
And they still gave up a lot of yards to the Lions in the end, 464 yards on the day, and ended up being 42 yards per drive, as was more than the Lions season average of 37 yards per drive. And then basically right on the Lions average for yards per play. But so not necessarily a bad thing, but some of the kind of measurables they gave up more than Detroit usually gets.
Yeah, and I'm not going to freak out about it when in terms of, I just think it's important to note, but at the same time, we got to just have the context. You don't have like half of your starters on defense. So it is what it is.
The secondary is...
And the Lions have
completely different from what expected.
And the Lions, despite struggling recently on defense, that offense is still kicking ass. That offense is still insane. Like, they're still moving the ball on everyone. They scored 40 points on the Chargers. They scored almost 40 points on the Bears. It's not like their offense has been struggling recently, and the Packers did a very good job. Dad, any other negatives on defense? Because I'm excited to talk about some of the positives on defense, because I think, as impressive as Love was, you could say, like, okay, well, he's doing it against a defense that has been struggling recently. We talked about in the pregame where over the past, or since the Lions bye, they had been bottom 3 in most performance metrics in terms of like EPA per play, EPA per dropback, et cetera, specifically EPA per dropback and pass defense. But on the defensive side of the football, the Lions, like, unequivocally have probably a top 5, I think certainly a top 5 offensive line. Many people have said top 3 offensive line. Yes, they were missing their starting left guard, but Dad, the Packers D-line abused the Lions O-line in this game up and down the field for pretty much the entirety of the game. And I think just could not be more impressed with almost every member of the D-line, frankly. I know you had some stats on this. What did you have for the Packers defense, specifically the D-line? Because I think that's the story of the defensive performance in this one.
Yeah, it's all got to start with Rashawn Gary. The guy was like a man possessed out there.
What a
3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, had another pressure on top of the 3 sacks. He also led the team in run defense grade on top of everything else he was doing. PFF run defense grade, and had a stop in the run game as well.
Yeah, and just so exciting for him. If people didn't know, I think he was really juiced up to be back at the field where he got hurt last year, and plus, add on to that
back in the state of Michigan.
Back in the state of Michigan, where he played college ball, back and against a team that had kicked their butt in week 4. I think he had every single emotional piece of motivation that you could possibly have in this game. And he came out, as Matt LaFleur would say, with his piss boiling. He was crazy in this game, unblockable. And like we said, the Lions have a good D-line, good offensive line, but it wasn't just Gary in this game, Dad. It was up and down the line.
Other members of the defensive interior too, Clark and Wyatt, and as you mentioned to me, not to forget, Brooks had great pass rushing days from the interior. Both Clark and Wyatt had like the next 2 best PFF grades for rushing.
Kenny
Clark
had
8 pressures on his own.
Yeah.
And the team, in addition to the 3 sacks from Gary, they had another 9 hits on Goff.
Yep.
So
and Clark had 8 pressures, and then Brooks had 5, if I remember correctly. Everyone was getting after the quarterback from everywhere. I wanted to highlight Preston Smith because you talked about those other guys, and I feel like Preston needs to get some shine in this one. I mean, especially so. Preston in this one, 5 pressures, tied for second on the team, with 2 hits, along with 2 stops in the run game per PFF. And it's especially impressive considering the fact that, their left tackle, Decker, is very good. Their right tackle, Penei Sewell, is probably one of the 2 or 3 or 4 best right tackles in the entire league. Maybe one of the best tackles in the league, regardless of left or right. And Preston was aligned against him on 36 of his 55 snaps. And I have never seen Penei Sewell get beat by spin moves like that or rip moves. Preston just dominated that matchup, and I was stunned. I was not stunned. I feel like that's offensive to Preston. He's had a very good year. But, he's getting a little long in the tooth, and he's still got it. He had a great game. You just can't say enough about the defensive line in this game, Dad. Clark and Wyatt, like you said, great games.
Meaning the whole defensive front, the interior D linemen plus the edge rushers together.
Yes. Gary, game of the year for him, got the game ball from Matt LaFleur after the game. I mean, Brooks hustling to chase down Goff on a 3rd down scramble to force a fumble. I mean, just maximum effort.
That was sort of a combination of hustle by Preston, you mentioned earlier on that play as well, chasing Goff down, and then Brooks finished him off with the dive and then swatting the ball out of his hand as he's making the tackle.
Yeah, I don't know what Goff was doing, switching. I don't know why Goff was holding the ball like he was Michael Vick in his prime, but we'll take it. He looked like a Sean McCoy holding the ball out here like a loaf of bread. Not great ball security from Goff in this one. Dad, any other positives on defense beside the line or anything else around the line? Because the only other thing I was going to say was that they finally caused some turnovers. And I know fumbles are fluky, and to force and recover 3 of them in the same game is not something that you can really project. But going into this game for NFL Pick
one
Watch,
of those, if they did, I was going to say, one of those, if they didn't recover it, they're going to get it back anyway.
This is true.
But it was 4th down.
Yeah. But going into this game, they had just 9 takeaways in 10 games per NFL Pick Watch. So less than 1 a game. So if we'll take some random variance back in our way, I'll take it. I'll take the ball bouncing a little flukily.
We have had fewer turnovers than I think anybody would want. You might even predict.
Yeah, third fewest in the league coming into this game amongst all teams. So,
but I had some other things to mention.
The story of this game, I saw you had there, 4th down. 4th down, we could say the story of this game goes Jordan Love on offense, Green Bay D-line second, and then just shutting down the Lions on 4th down, I think is probably the biggest swing in this game. Like if they get 2 of those, might be talking about a different game. But held them to 1 of 5, if I remember correctly. Take it away.
1 of 5 on 4th down tries, includes the fake punt. But Campbell was, true to his game, was aggressive. But Detroit came in converting 50%. Over 50%, 12 of 22 on 4th down for the year. And in their last 3 games, they had converted 83% of their 4th down attempts.
Yeah, this is one of the most aggressive teams in the
today
league.
It was only 1 of 5.
Yeah, and one of the best 4th down offenses in the entire league. And so it's not just that they were having to go for it because they were down. They were going for it because they often have success going for it. And the Packers said not today.
That's what they like to do.
Yeah.
And the Packers held them actually to 0 of 4 until 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
They didn't get that first 4th down conversion until they were on the last, desperation, already knowing they had to get a touchdown and an onside kick at that point, probably.
Yeah, and I think
they also held Detroit to only 2 points per drive. So a half a point less per drive than they've been averaging. They've been averaging about 2.5 points per drive. So even though they were giving up more yards per drive, they're giving up fewer points per drive. In part, I think, aided by the turnovers and some fourth down stops. And as I mentioned, I'll give myself a little shout out here because I mentioned what was my key to the game about how the Packers would win if they got more pressures on Goff
than Love got pressure
more than
himself.
the Lions than the Lions pressured Love. So that turned out to be true. They out pressured him 26-15.
Yeah, and just Goff was running for his life back there. They had him moving off his spot a lot. There were multiple plays where I saw Kenny just pushing the guard back 8 yards into the backfield. I was like, ooh, that's a man right there. But yeah, what a great performance, offense and defense for the Packers in this one. Anything else you wanted to talk about on defense, Dad? Secondary wasn't great in this one. Oh, this is who we need to talk about. Jonathan Owens. Jonathan Owens played the game of his life in this one. The scoop and score fumble, the tackle on Amon-Ra St. Brown on third.
When he just flattens him?
No,
comes in. Not that one.
The one on the right sideline around the Packers 26-yard line. It's like 3rd and 7, and they're clearly just trying to gain yards to set up 4th and short. And so they're running a little quick screen to Amon-Ra St. Brown on the right side, and Owens is all over it. Tackles him for a 1-yard loss. Obviously, there's also that massive hit that probably would have been like an 8-yard run, but Owens comes in and just obliterates the ball carrier for like a 4-yard gain instead. Fun play, setting the tone, but the tackle on Amon-Ra and the scoop and score, I think, were probably his 2 biggest plays of the game. He was very good in this one. Best game as a Packer. It only makes me think, and this is a section that's like things we're thinking about, is who are the starting safeties when everyone is healthy? Where do they go? What is best for the team this year, and what is best for the team going forward? For me, I feel like it has to be like Anthony Johnson and Rudy Ford. But it's hard for me to say that when, Savage was playing pretty well and Jonathan Owens is making plays out there. And they need playmakers on this defense because they kind of have a deficit of, guys who will get after the ball.
I think it has to be Savage because we're still got a chance to get in the playoffs and do something in this thing. But then who's the number 2?
I mean, you sure it has to be Savage? Ford has been noticeably better than Savage this entire year.
I guess Ford has had a good year this year. I thought Savage was playing. I have to go back and check to see whether this holds up to my first impression. I've been playing better ball this year than last year. Anyway, that's for sure.
Certainly, yes. I just think it comes down to to me, it's 2 pieces. I want to see Anthony Johnson Jr. get reps so that we have a safety next year on the roster who has taken snaps. He's the only one under contract. He's the only one under contract. And then I would like to see Ford because Ford has been the best safety. And so that's how I get to those 2. I don't know if it's fair to Savage or Owens, but that's just my thought. But Dad, should we move on to special teams and wrap this thing up?
Because I had just had one more thing. It was almost a special teams thing that makes us think, like, doesn't it seem like we give up 2-point conversions? 2-point
conversions like crazy.
All the time.
Yes.
They gave up 2 of them in the end to get it down to a 1-score game.
I will find a way.
Just off that last one, it would have been still a 2. Was it?
I was going to say I will find a way to blame Bisaccia for this. Don't you worry. I'll find a way. It's clearly Bisaccia's fault.
So the Packers are giving up success on 3 out of 4, 75% this year. The league average last year was 49.2%. Over the last 4 seasons, Green Bay has given up the 2-point conversion 12 out of 16 attempts for 75% success rate.
The Four Seasons Hotel or the Four Seasons Plumbing and landscaping? Anyway,
this is more like the Four Seasons Plumbing and landscaping in this case, I think,
yes.
Is how they're performing on this 2-point defense.
It's such a small sample size that it's like probably a little noisy, but at the same time, it does seem a little easy, doesn't it? And then when we went for 2, we ran the Philly special, and it just did not have it. Did not have it at all.
It was not special.
What was wilder, that play? Or the throwback to Aaron Jones' 3rd down from last week or 2 weeks ago
from Dontavian Wicks?
Yes, which was crazier, which was a weirder play. I just don't know. We're pulling out bag of tricks stuff, which I get because it's like you're at a bit of a talent deficiency. But, I guess, you love them when they work, you hate them when they don't. It is what it is. It's like Dan Campbell going for 4th downs. I'm sure Lions fans love it when they get them, and I have questions when it loses them a game like it did this one. Dad, let's move to special teams, though, and wrap this thing up. We're going a little long. Special teams. Missed the PAT, missed a 63-yarder, almost looked like we were going to have a recreation of the Iron Bowl. I was legitimately worried he was going to return that 63-yard field goal.
Then it happened later. Well, I guess not the same day. It happened on Friday. Between the Jets and the Dolphins, but I thought we were going to see that. He's running. It's like, can somebody tackle this guy to make sure this doesn't happen?
Shout out
watch
to
as the play unfolds.
Chased him down.
Yeah, but besides that, they also for that the stop of the fake punt on 4th down. They clogged up the offense's right side, so he had nowhere to go. Yeah. And Lucas Van Ness hustles down the line to tackle him in the backfield, so they can't get anywhere. Their punting was. Even though, as unfortunate they had to punt so many times late in the game, they only had 4 punts overall for the game, and all 4 they had 1 at the 3, 2 at the 9, and 1 at the 15.
Yeah.
So he was Wheeler's did a good job of pinning the Lions deep.
Yeah, he did. I would say an okay job of pinning the Lions deep. I think, to me, if you're punting from the opposing territory, like, I expect you to get it inside the 20. I would like you to get it inside the 10. And he did that a couple of times. But
well, he got three of them inside the 10.
That's true. But
3 or 4. That's not bad.
That's true. But anyway,
But I will give a shout out to was that, I think, Robert Rochelle?
Rochelle, yes, sprinting down and throwing it back,
down
yes.
and get that, knowing he's not going to be able to maintain his balance, and throwing it back into the field to play, so it gets down there near the goal line.
Packers won the position battle, or the field position battle, very, very much so in this game. It was another, maybe not bigger, but another quieter reason as to why they won this game. I was just going to say, the Lions were coming after him on trying to get punt blocks over and over and over and over and over again, and they didn't give up any. So that's a thumbs up to Bisatria's squad. I thought that the missed extra point, just to touch on it one more time, I thought the snap was bad again. I feel like Orzex had multiple snaps where I'm just like, you're putting that on Whelan's right hip, dude. Just like snap it up the middle. It remains a mystery to me how there are not 32 people in the world who can like seamlessly snap it just straight back.
And he was supposed to be one of the better snappers in the league too.
Paid him a good amount of money, but he's mostly been fine. But I think it's just like a few weeks where, Carlson's had some misses that I just thought the snap was not good enough and could have been certainly a lot better. And to be fair, like, he could deal with poor snaps better. And I think that just probably comes with time and reps. And he could certainly, it's not an unmakeable kick, but I think the situation is becoming harder for him because of the snaps being difficult. Not absolving him of all blame. You certainly need to make your extra points, but at the same time, you'd like for the rest of the operation to be good as well. Anything else on special teams, Dad, or do you got your player of the game?
So you want to go first? The player of the game?
We'll go first. Some transparency. I texted my dad after this game. I said, one of our players of the game is Rashawn Gary, and the other one is Jordan Love. You can pick who. I'm just going to go with Love. Great game. Best game of the year for him. We talked all about how impressive that performance was. He was pretty much not only did he play well, he was the engine of the offense, which I think is not usually something you could say about a first-year starter, where like they are the reason the offense is doing what they're doing, not playing with a lot of stars, not playing with much of a running game, getting pressured a lot, not taking sacks, not taking negative plays. Really impressive day from him. And Dad, Rashawn Gary, I'm sorry I pigeonholed you into picking a player, but it had to be Gary.
But he wrecked the Lions offense. He made plays that directly led to Packers points.
Yeah.
From the defensive side.
Exactly. He essentially scored 7 points for the Packers, and it was a 7-point game. So that's just math. But anyway, Gary and Love, the D-line and the coaching, all around just such a strong performance from the Packers against a strong opponent, the 8-2 Lions, now 8-3, leading in the NFC North, a team that beat the crap out of you the last time you played on a short week with half your players out and 17 more on the injury report. What a gutsy win to be up for most of the game. No one thought they had a chance, and yet they won. One of the most satisfying wins of the Matt LaFleur era. Thank you again, listeners, so much for listening. If you like what you heard here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out whenever we have new episodes, stats we find interesting, etc., etc. And come subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you can find us. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to us there, it would really help our numbers. Thank you again so much for listening. We'll be giving you guys a pregame for the Packers' upcoming matchup against the Chiefs sometime this week, so keep your eyes out for that. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.